What's up guys, it's Chris here. So on this channel, we always talk about the importance of long-term investing. So if we are here as long-term investors, by consistently investing and leaving our investments over the long term to grow, then we also want to know that what we are putting our money into will give us the best possible return. So that's why in today's episode, we will be using data from Daily Investor to count down the 5 companies that have given the absolute highest returns over the last 20-year period, all the way up to a company growing by 75,000%. And we'll also be taking a look at what made them successful and whether they are actually still a good investment to put your money into today. So let's get started. I've said it many times here before that I classify myself as a long-term investor, and there are many reasons for that, but the most important reason is that by all of the statistics available and that I've seen, it is very simply put that the longer you invest for, the lower your chances of losing money. There is an often used example that if you invest in one of the major index funds like the S&P 500 or the JSE Top 40, that in its entire history there has never been a 20-year period ever, no matter when you invested, that has not been profitable. That even if you invested at the very top of the market, right before the biggest crashes, it has so far in history been impossible to lose money over any 20-year period. So that is one side of the coin, but the other is that as long as you have picked good companies or indexes, the longer you hold your investment, the higher the compounded growth you can achieve on your returns. But as long-term investors, you want to know that where you are placing your money is going to be giving you the best returns. So with that said, let's take a look through the last 20 years of the JSE, and we're going to count down from the smallest return all the way up to the largest return of 75,000%, the 5 highest returning shares you could have invested in with data from Daily Investor. We'll also take a look at how much you would make if you had invested then and whether those same companies are still good investments today. So let's jump right in with number 5. Okay, so the 5th highest growing company on the JSE from the 30th of March 2003 up to the 30th of March this year is none other than Mr. Price. This is a company that was founded in 1985, and as we all know, they built their brand and their business in the low-cost clothing sector, seeing an opportunity to cater to an undercatered area of the industry. And these days, they've also expanded their same offering to other sectors of the consumer market with its Mr. Price Sport and Home stores. But back 38 years ago, they started with just one store in the Durban area before they started to expand all across the continent. Today, they're one of the largest retailers in the country with over 1,200 stores in 14 countries. And that is why from 2003 to now, their share price has grown by an incredible 3,101% with a market capitalization of 37 billion rand. So that means that if you invested just 10,000 rand in Mr. Price in 2003, you would be sitting on 300,000 rand today as a total return, which is 30 times your investment. So consumer goods is a solid performer. But lately it has been a bit of a different story. In the last 5 years, it has lost 47% of its share price, and although net income went up by 26% this year, it hasn't been very impressive over the short term. But with a low price to earnings ratio of 11 and a dividend of 5.7%, some people might see it as a value buy. But as with all of these, it's up to you to do your own research. Next up in number 4, we have the retailer giant Shoprite. The company, founded in 1979, was originally a grocery store in Cape Town that grew to 8 stores before being purchased by Christo Visa and Pepkor Group. Now, of course, we know him as the multi-billionaire behind Pep, Shoprite, Ackermans, Cashbuild, and Checkers. Like most retailers at the time, they expanded across Africa, and today Shoprite has more than double the amount of stores of Mr. Price at a whopping 2,800. So with that kind of growth over the last 20 years, the company has been able to provide the shareholders a total of 3,923% at a market cap of 131 billion rand. So your investment of 10,000 rand in 2003 would leave you sitting with nearly 400,000 rand today. But when it comes to how the company is doing today, that is a very interesting story, and as always, the share price graph tells it best. Just take a look at that V shape in the share price. Needless to say, 2018 was not a good year. With food devaluation and industrial strike action in South Africa, the company was also struggling with a new IT system, and their earnings dropped by 26%. However, the last 3 years have seen Shoprite's share price grow by 145%. That's an average of about 50% a year. The last year has been mostly flat as the world is struggling, but with net income rising every year and a 2.7% dividend, this could be a good value share that keeps rising like we have seen over the last few years. Then we have our third highest growing share over the last 20 years, but honestly the second and first place blow these others out of the water, and I do own one of them. But before we get there, let's take a look at number 3, which is Clicks Pharmacies. With Clicks, we're looking at a 54-year-old company that actually only started to thrive in the last 20 years. You see, even though it kept its "You Pay Less" slogan since the beginning, originally it only sold general cosmetic and appliance type household items, but in 2003 South Africa changed its legislation to allow private companies to open up pharmacies. So in 2004 the very first Clicks pharmacy was born, and they expanded in a major way since then. But where Clicks really thrives compared to its competitors is its ability to bring its operations in-house. It bought United Pharmacy Distributors, or UPD, so it could be in control of the costs and logistics of distributing the products in its stores, and it went a step further by being the first healthcare retailer to begin selling its own branded products, allowing it to have complete control over its supply chain, pricing, and of course its profits. So over the past 20 years, Clicks has shown the JSE a total return of 4,493%, meaning your 10,000 Rand investment would be worth a cool 449,000 Rand today, which is 44 times your initial investment. Now, unlike the first two, Clicks has been an unstoppable success story. Just take a look at their graph. You can see how solid, consistent, and powerful their growth has been over the last 10 and even 5 years. When we go to 1 year, we can see how most companies are struggling this year. But as you know with me, I love seeing good, solid, stable companies with the share price drop so I can purchase at a good price for the long term. And if the next 20 years are anything like their last, this could be a very good option to keep in a portfolio. Okay, so get ready for this next one. Like I said, the numbers really get insane from here. In our second spot of the best performing companies in the last 2 decades, you and I will both know it. Here we have the single largest company on the entire JSE and the country by market value, Naspers. This was the darling of the JSE for the longest time. It's a 108-year-old company that started as an Afrikaans newspaper publisher, but unlike some of the other newspaper companies at the time, Naspers turned the corner along with technology in the 1990s and embraced the internet revolution to become the most valuable company in Africa. You will know some of its biggest companies like Media24 and Takealot. However, what really took Naspers to the stratosphere was back in 2001 when Naspers invested a tidy sum of $32 million with an M in a relatively small Chinese startup called Tencent. That was their biggest win as a company, as that investment is now worth over $100 billion with a B. That is a 3,125 times return on investment, probably one of the best investments ever in history. These days, Naspers has split itself up into Naspers and Prosus, with Prosus being where Tencent stands now, but Naspers still remains a majority shareholder in Prosus. So remember, Clicks had a 4,000% return over 20 years, while Naspers over the last 20 years has given a total return of an unreal 27,159%. And it has a market cap of 1.43 trillion Rand with a T. So your 10,000 Rand investment would be worth 2.7 million Rand right now. We're into multi-millionaire territory. Now, I actually bought Naspers in 2012. I had about 1,000 Rand, and if I had kept it, I would have 10x'd my investment by now for 10,000 Rand. But that was in the beginning of my investing journey. I have learned now to hold on for the long term. It is sometimes difficult to tell the future of digital tech companies, and as you can see over the last 5 years it has fluctuated a lot, but in the last year it has gone up by another 100%, so it does seem like it keeps going up in the long term, but perhaps it's about timing your purchases. So I know it seems like you can't get a better return than that, but of course we still have our number one share that gave the highest return of any other company on the JSE over the last 20 years. The best possible share that you could have bought in March 2003, and the number one spot is a share that I own, Capitec Bank. Now, we have a video on the channel where we go through the full history and the incredible story that is Capitec Bank, so if you want the full journey on this company, you can check that out. But the simple explanation is that Capitec was started in 2001 when the company bought a collection of microlenders and turned them into bank branches after getting its banking license. Then its super low cost pricing model helped to grow it from 25,000 active clients to now being South Africa's biggest digital bank by customers with a total 19 million active clients. They have also bought Mercantile Bank, which will allow them to enter the business banking industry. Now, the bank has been moving from strength to strength, with the share price still doubling over the last 5 years. In 2023, the share price has been dropping with most companies and the stresses on the banking sector, but if you follow this channel, you will know that I have been using this to consistently buy shares to top up my holdings at some great prices, and a dividend of just over 2% isn't bad either. So here we have it, the single highest return you could possibly have gotten by investing in any company in 2003 over the last 20 years. Capitec Bank has given a total return of an unbelievable 75,169%. About 3 times that of Naspers. That means every 10,000 Rand invested in March 2003 is worth 7.5 million Rand now. Just imagine that return. That is an amount you could retire on from just a 10,000 Rand investment. That is the power of picking good shares and holding them over the long term. And guys, that is it. The 5 best performing JSE shares over the last 20 years. As investors, the most important thing we can do is pick the best shares. That simple act of picking good shares is what made Warren Buffett the richest man in the world. So while these are the last 20 years, I always believe the more information and data you have of the past, the better informed you are to pick for the future. And there may be even a couple of these that you want to add to your own portfolio. I already have Capitec, and I was very interested to see the long-term prospects of clicks especially. But guys, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed the information, please feel free to like the video and to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel or get access to our investing spreadsheets and live portfolio updates, or to ask one-on-one questions, you can head on over to our Patreon page. But until then, I'll see you guys next time, as always, on Casual Cash. Cheers.